Welcome, Jim, on this podcast. Very happy to have you on board. Today, we'll be looking at your personal journey, like how did it all started. So if you can talk a little bit about where were you born, where do you really belong from, what your family life was, and we can get started from there.
Awesome. Well, first of all, thank you very much for having me on. It's really cool to hang out with you, and yeah, have a chance to talk through my personal journey. So where did it all begin? So I was born in the UK. Yeah, I'm British, hence the very nice accent. And I actually grew up. Everyone loves my accent, especially in the US. It's crazy how many people love the accent. And I was born right on the south coast. So if you've got the UK, literally straight through London, straight down the bottom, and just as you hit the sea, that's where I was born. And I grew up in a reasonably privileged family, I will say. It's kind of one thing I need to be honest about with my journey in tech is I started off in quite a privileged setup. Yeah, my parents weren't rich, but they were comfortably enough middle class that they could afford computers. I think that's kind of where the whole thing started from. Yeah, I was born late 70s. So as I was hitting kind of early kid years, this was the time when the kind of the personal computer revolution was really starting to kick off. My first computer was actually the Atari console, the one that I don't know if you've seen Lego recently released a Lego version of an old Atari console. That was my first computer. So you plug that into the CRT TV, twiddle the dial to get the right channel, and you play Pong and tennis and all that kind of stuff. And then move from there onto a ZX Spectrum, and that is something that's very uniquely British. Have you come across that computer before?
One question here. So you mentioned about your parents being like middle class, but you come from a privileged family background. By any chance, did your parents also work within the computer or tech industry at the time, or how did you get your first computer? Like, how did you convince that this is not a game and this is something I need for my education purpose? How did you convince your parents?
I didn't convince. They weren't tech people. Very far from tech people. My mum actually trained as a nurse. My dad was an accountant. So his tech was using kind of whatever adding machines, the advanced calculators and things like that of the time. But it was a case of, because they were comfortable when these games consoles came on the market, they were like, oh, we should get one of these. We could afford to have one as a home entertainment device.
Okay.
Yeah. And then when the kind of the personal computer revolution kicked off, they were kind of very keen to maybe find out more about this. They were a little bit forward thinking in that this could be a big thing. So the ZX Spectrum, that was the first computer we had, and that was a proper programmable computer. So it's invented by a guy called Sir Clive Sinclair in the UK. It was kind of one of the quintessential British home computers. The kind of, you think like Commodore 64 was very big in the US. The Spectrum was very big in the UK. Had 48 kilobytes of RAM. You loaded games off a cassette. So literally you plug in an old-fashioned tape deck, load games off that. But what was great is it came with BASIC built in. And with the actual computer itself, you didn't just get the computer, you got a big, thick manual that not only said this is how you load programs, but it had a guide to BASIC. And that was kind of the Kickstarter for me and for, I guess, my family as a whole, really. We had a tape with a few games on it, but there was this book, and you could type in the words in this book and you would get Hangman or Tic-Tac-Toe or kind of whatever game out of it. And I must have been
Which grade were you at that time when you got your first computer? Like you were still in school?
Yeah, I mean, I was probably about 7 years old, 6, 7 years old. So I was quite young when we first got this.
Okay.
Yeah, the Spectrum came out in 83. So I was about 6, 7 at the time when that came out.
That's pretty good. So so did this interest in computers and all led you to like do a bachelor's in computer science? Is that what you pursued as you went ahead?
No. Thing is, back then, you have people had computers at home. So I dabble with the Spectrum. I have to give a shout out to my mum here. I always, whenever I'm talking about my history of the computers, when I was young, I was typing the listings from the books and magazines. yeah, I was young. I didn't have the attention span, so my mum would step in and help type in those listings. So I cannot thank her enough for all the time she put in helping type in the rest of the games we were working on together. But things we moved from the Spectrum to like a PC, but at that time there wasn't really careers in computing that were well known. You know, look, today everyone wants a job in tech. You know, we've got tech billionaires, we've got all this money sloshing around in the industry. When you go back to kind of the late 80s, early 90s, it was a select few working in the industry, not a huge amount. So, you know, in school, we had careers lessons where they talked about you can be an electrician, or maybe you could go and join the army or the civil service. And, you know, nobody ever said to me, did you know you can get paid to work with computers? That was something that was never really talked about.
Right.
So I ended up falling into it via a kind of a roundabout route because I enjoyed computers, but in class I enjoyed doing chemistry. So that so I actually did A levels. So in the UK, you do what's called GCSEs at 16, and then you do A levels at 18. When I kind of hit that 18, I was doing A levels like chemistry, physics, and chemistry interested me. So I was like, oh, you know, I'll go and do a degree in chemistry. I will go and become a chemist because I like mixing this stuff together and making things and writing things down. But the college I went to, the University of Surrey in the UK, they offered a degree called computer aided chemistry. And that sounded interesting. And so that was, yes, you do chemistry. Yes, you do the wet chemistry. Yes, you're on the bench, but we have these computer things. And so some of it was what's called molecular modeling, which is 3D models of chemical structures. But some of it was, how do we use computers with science? So how do we control some machinery from a computer? How do we write computer software to do various chemical things? You know, the hello world we wrote was like you'd type in a chemical structure and give you the molecular weight of it, things like that. So, and that was when I realized that maybe there's a career with this computing thing.
Excellent. So were you using like MATLAB or something like that to do the chemistry modeling that you talked about, or was there a separate like a software for that?
It was dedicated software. So it was actual dedicated molecular modeling software. Rasmol was one I used. I mean, you're going back a bit here. You know, I graduated in 1999, so you know, going back a bit.
Excellent, excellent. So this is very fascinating that back in the day you were doing that. So you graduated in like a computer-aided chemistry. Did you pursue a career as a chemist, or like in like some biomedical or related field initially, or how did after doing your undergrad in chemistry, like what did you do?
So because the degree was computer-aided chemistry, my degree was one of the ones in the UK they call it a sandwich degree, where essentially you do a 1-year internship. So 2 years back to back in college, 1 year internship, then 1 year back in college. And for my year, I went to work for what was SmithKline Beecham, is now part of GlaxoSmithKline, I think, or I don't know what they're called now. They keep merging together all these big pharmaceutical firms. But they're actually working on a team building cheminformatics software. So there's this whole thing called combinatorial chemistry where they mix 1,000 of these with 1,000 of these and get 1,000,000 different chemicals, and then they test them all and see what works. You know, kind of throw it against the wall, see what sticks type model for doing chemistry. And so I worked on the software team there, actually building software that understood chemistry. We're actually using Delphi was the programming language we were using, which was Object Pascal. So, you know, the Pascal version of Visual Basic. This was back in 97, 98. So, you know, quite popular then. Right. So that was actually doing cheminformatics software. And then from there, when it came time to actually get a full-time job, you know, I really enjoyed the computing stuff. I didn't enjoy the chemistry that much. So I knew that I didn't want to go and be a chemist. You know, that lab coat, goggles, that's not for me. I want to sit in front of one of them computers and write code all day. So I ended up applying for a job in a company that did cheminformatics software. So, you know, I was literally in my interview for the job, I was being interviewed by somebody who did exactly the same degree as me just a year earlier, which was pretty cool. He'd even worked for the same company that doing his internship that I did my internship for. So, you know, as part of my application, I sent them a copy of my write-up of the year, and he was going through it going, yeah, I wrote this introduction. I wrote that. You know, you're just reusing my work, aren't you? And so, yeah, I ended up in this company and we were building chemical information systems. So, you know, with things like we're getting Oracle, the database, to understand a chemical structure as a data type. So you can query by in this text column, find me a text column that contains this word. We were building things like find me a chemical structure that contains this bit, and you could search against a database with that. So still leveraging the skills I had in chemistry, but we're applying it to code. So I went from chemistry to C++. Just kind of building this systems that understood chemical structures. So I kind of had this nice, I know the chemistry, so I can do this, but I love the programming, so I want to sit there and write code all day. So
that's excellent. So did you had any siblings growing up, or you were the only child in your family?
I do have a sibling. We're not close.
Oh, okay. So even in the when you were kids, you were not like playing with
That's not. Let's move on.
Okay, no worries. So as you were working starting in your career, like you build the career, especially doing computer modeling for chemistry and things along those lines, how long did you work in this career, like building chemistry models, writing software for detecting different bonds and data processing within the chemistry framework? How long did you have this career?
So I was working there for about it was about 5 years, 5 years in total. It was a small company. I was employee number 39 when I joined.
Nice.
It's now grown quite a bit. It's been bought out by another larger group.
Mm-hmm.
But I've actually I still know some of the people who I was working with back then, and they're
Nice.
still there now. So, one guy started the same day as me, and he is still working for this company 24 years later. So
20 years plus. Excellent.
Yeah.
Right. So after working in this area, did you had a change of hearts that you want to try like more enterprise software or shift your gears into some other field, or you wanted to continue to kind of work helping out chemistry while computer-aided design within chemistry? Basically, that's what your initial passion was.
So yeah, I had a change of heart. So the chemistry stuff was fine. Not hugely interested in that. It was the writing code. That was the thing I got really excited about. Geeking out on actual code. That's me. And, had a few friends who moved from the company we were working for into the world of banking. And the big draw with the world of banking is the amount they pay. So, when you're getting paid this amount of money and then you go and interview a job where they're going to pay you twice as much, especially early on in your career, that was quite a powerful draw. One of the things I've certainly found throughout my whole career is when you apply for a job, they want to pay you what your last job paid plus a little bit. So if you apply for a job and you earn this much, the next job will pay you this much. If you apply for a job and you earn this much, you get that, the quicker you can get that base level up, the quicker you can keep it going. And certainly when you're starting out in your career, it's like, I would like to buy a house. I would like to start paying off a mortgage, just things like that. I want to get settled. And so the draw of you can double your income, it's quite appealing. From there, it was a few conversations with some of the banks in London, because I was working in a town called Guildford. So you've got London, just south there's a town called Guildford. I was living just outside of Guildford. It's like a 45-minute train journey into London. UK, fantastic for trains. I know Brits complain about them. They're always late and everything, but they have them, unlike the US, where trains just blow up with chemicals on them and doesn't really work for anything else. But certainly in the UK, the trains were fantastic. So rather than sit in my car for half an hour to get to work, I could sit on a train for an hour, do my thing on the train, code on a laptop, read a book, whatever, go to work and earn a big stack of cash. And so I sold my soul to the devil, for want of a better expression, traded in my morals a little bit and went to work for the banks and started earning more money and moved in kind of enterprise software. I wasn't building anything particularly specialized. It wasn't like I need to understand this chemical structure. It's I take data from this system over here, I do something with it, and I send it to this system over here.
That's classic extract, transform, and load.
That's basically banking. ETL is banking. You end up writing code in whatever language to do that, and you might write a front end. A little bit of C++ and MFC, as we did back then. And you get a front end, and traders would bang in data, and you would take the data, do something with it, send it to another system. That's here's a big bag of money for doing that.
Yeah, excellent. So you might have enjoyed quite a bit. Like, who doesn't like a lot of money, especially young age? You want to party, you need to have money. You're thinking of starting a family, traveling here and there. Like,
Hmm.
having more money doesn't hurt at all, actually,
No,
right?
no, no. I mean, it's in this world, there's definitely a lot of rich people who could do with being less rich. There's
Yeah,
to help a lot of people who have a lot less money. But when
yeah,
you're young and you're still experiencing the world, the draw of money is quite appealing.
appealing.
Especially when you're thinking, you know what, I want to go on vacation.
Yeah.
A girl I was dating back then, now my wife, is Zimbabwean. So she
Oh,
said, let's go back to my home in Zimbabwe. Let's go and see that. So you take 3 weeks off, you fly to Zimbabwe, you maybe cross the border into Zambia, you see Victoria Falls, you go on safari, kind of the dream holiday people talk about. Do that for 3 weeks, come back and carry on working. You get into that lifestyle, you get yourself a house, start paying off your mortgage, maybe pick up a not too expensive sports car, things like that. So you do get suckered into it. I would be
that,
completely honest. It's very
right.
easy to get suckered into that lifestyle. You know,
Right.
you see the bankers throwing money around and buying champagne, so you start throwing money around and buying champagne. And
Oh,
it's once
right.
the lifestyle starts, it kind of rolls and rolls and rolls. And
Absolutely. So this is very interesting. So you basically went all the way to Southern Africa in Zambia, and your wife you mentioned is from there. So can you contrast a little bit about like you living and growing up in the UK, working in London, and working in initially days. Initially, you were working for chemistry and computer design within chemistry, then moved on to banking. Um, and now kind of having relationship from like a African country and even traveling there. How do you contrast? Like, were you the first one in your family who went outside of like UK and kind of married somewhere outside, or is this something that you had seen in your family or your siblings or cousins or somewhere?
no, my family certainly weren't big travelers.
Okay.
Growing up, we used to vacation in Wales. So you got the UK, England,
Yeah.
Wales.
Well. Yeah.
The most adventurous they would get at the time would be we would go maybe to France.
Yeah.
Because my parents' generation didn't really travel. Travel was still very expensive.
Right.
From the UK, a lot of people jump on a ferry to France. That was quite a done thing. So
Mhm.
we would go and spend a couple of weeks in a house somewhere in the UK, maybe pop over to France. Not really much traveling. I did a little bit, but when I met my now wife, because she was from Zimbabwe,
Yeah.
she opened my eyes up to a lot of travel. So the first time I left Europe was get on a plane with her. We go to Zimbabwe, Zambia for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And that really opened up my eyes to travel. And that opened up a whole massive world to me. End up getting married on the beach in South Africa. Travel all over the place. And as part of that, instead of my parents inspiring me to travel, I inspired them. So, I was getting married at the beach in South Africa. Right, here's your plane tickets. Come on down, spend a couple of weeks with us in South Africa. I would send them out on safari and kind of so on from that. So that it really opened up my eyes to opportunities all around the world. So one thing my wife said to me right from the start is she didn't want to live in England all her life. She grew up, she was born in Zimbabwe, she spent some time in South Africa, back in Zimbabwe, in Zambia, moved to the UK. And she was like, right, I'm happy here for a while, but where next? And that combined with the fact that I getting a chance to go to all these places, it was like, okay, where's the next place to go? So it really did open my eyes. And certainly when you travel, it really does bring home that the world is a great place and there's a lot of very different people. And it's very easy to get kind of suckered in. I would say friends, but former friends who I just haven't really seen for a long time, who live in the same town they were born, and they
Yeah.
haven't really been anywhere else, and they haven't been exposed to anything else. And it's like there's a whole world out there that you don't realize.
Right. Right.
And
Absolutely.
it changes your personality. It makes you more accepting of people, makes you more accepting of cultural differences. You get more excited about cultural differences.
Right.
It's not like, oh, this is different, I don't like it. It's like, oh, this is different, I want to learn more. So it
Yeah.
really does change your outlook on life.
Excellent. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. So I'm assuming that So your next shift was to go to the US then. Is that did you go?
Oh, no, 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 no. Oh, no. So I was working in London for the banks. I was working for HSBC, the Hong Kong Shanghai Banking Corporation, which was founded in Scotland and the UK to deal with trade with China hundreds of years ago. And the team I was on, we had like I guess a sister team would be a good description for it, in Hong Kong. And they were looking to integrate what we were building in the UK with what they were building in Hong Kong. And so we were looking to hire someone in Hong Kong with the same skill set I had. I actually moved from C++ to C# doing WPF development, and they wanted a WPF developer in Hong Kong. So I was asked to help with interviewing people, finding the right person. And I said, well, you know what? How about me?
Myself. Yeah, exactly.
Why can't I be this person? So how about I go to Hong Kong and do the job? I know our system inside out because I built most of it. So
Right.
I'm going to be the best person to help this integration happening. And, they thought about it for a while. They went, yeah, right, let's do this. So, it was an idea I had. I went home to my wife and said, look, should we do this? And she said, why haven't you just applied already? You don't need to ask me. Let's do it. You should have started this.
Yeah.
And so we did. We'd never been to Asia before. We've been across Europe and Africa, never been to Asia. And literally the first time we went to Asia was when we landed in Hong Kong to move there.
Oh, wow.
Sold a house in the UK, packaged all our stuff up, got on that plane, and our first time in Asia was getting off that plane in Hong Kong. We'd never been there before. We looked at pictures of it. We'd done our research, but we landed in Hong Kong. And it was the best thing I have ever done, I would say. Maybe having my daughter is probably the best thing, but this was definitely in the top 2 or 3 things I've ever done was moving to Hong Kong. And yeah, we got off the plane, we in a taxi to our hotel, and it's greenery everywhere, which you don't expect, because Hong Kong is basically like that. It's got apartments all the way around, and the rest of it is just greenery at the top of the mountain. And it was just incredible. We spent 3.5 years there. We threw ourselves into it. The only people I knew were the people at work. My wife knew no one except me.
Right.
And so it changed our attitude to how do we get to know people? How do we make friends? When you look at like young kids today, you'll see 2 kids in a playground. One will go up to the other and say, I like your shoes. We should be friends. And you kind of almost need to get like that as an adult. Some of our friends we made in Hong Kong where somebody was sitting outside a pub watching a rugby match. We said, oh, can we join you? You sat down, watched the rugby with them, and then we became friends. You have to have that ability to get to know people quickly. It's kind of very much drags you out of your shell. If you're an introvert, you are forced to come out your shell, because otherwise you just be by yourself. So yeah, we had an absolute great time. Made some good friends, saw so much of different cultures. Hong Kong, former British colony, handed back to the Chinese. So you had a mixture of like the British influence, you had a mixture of the local Cantonese influence, kind of the Beijing influence from mainland China. And then it was just, because it was such an important port, a central place for money from all around the world, there's just everybody there. So, in your group of friends, you would have everything from, China, Malaysia, Poland, Germany, Scotland, Colombia, France, just thinking about one group of friends I had. So many people kind of ended up in Hong Kong. So got to meet an amazing group of people and just had a brilliant time, and just kind of opened our eyes to the fact that you can just get on a plane and move to another country. Obviously, visas and things like that make it potentially difficult. But countries like Hong Kong, you got a job, here's your visa.
Very, very open from that perspective. So that must have been very cool, right? Because Hong Kong, as you see, like I have only seen it through some Jackie Chan movies, actually, how Hong Kong, like all the hustle bustle, like tall buildings, very heavy density of population in a very small, place. It must not have been very different from London, I'm guessing, because I've been to London quite a few times, and that's also pretty crowded and very dense, very similar to New York-ish kind of feel. But was it very different? Like, I'm sure it is.
I would say it's more dense. You think, because New York, for example, everything is quite spaced out. the pavements, the sidewalks are spaced out, the roads are big. It's very, although it's a lot of people, it's dense. Everything's quite spaced out.
Spread out.
London kind of brings it closer. Hong Kong brings it closer still.
Still, okay.
So it's very, very dense. There's always people around, you know, it's a very busy place. Because Hong Kong, it's got quite a low population density, but when you realize because of the shape of it, you know, you've got like Hong Kong Island, for example, it's basically it's a mountain. And so the population is all around the edge.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's kind of weird. You've got this really dense group of people. You know, you've got restaurants on the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th floor of a high rise. You know, I lived on the 17th floor, a friend lived on the 65th floor of another building. You know, you're all wedged into these tight spaces, but you go 5 minutes outside of it and you're just in the middle of nowhere. So literally the bit in the middle is just trees, hikes. You know, I used to go on 10-mile hikes just around the island, and you could walk for hours and not see another person. And then you finish, jump back and you finish an area that's populated, back in the taxi, drive back to, you know, a place like Causeway Bay, and you're just rammed with people. So it's kind of got the best of both worlds, that
nice
peaceful spaces and just the insanity of so many people waiting together, just really close to each other. It's a phenomenal city. Best place in the world.
Right. This rings bell to me. Like, so I've been to Singapore a couple of times actually. So that's also like a city kind of country, a small, like 5 by 25 kilometer might be maximum. So you can actually technically walk across Singapore in one day and you'll be done. But I don't think it has any mountain or anything like that. So mostly it's just like flat land. And as you said, like there are a lot of greenery and vertical gardens I saw there. Vertical farming, they used to call it. That's the only place I saw actual vertical farming. Otherwise, I always saw it only on YouTube or television, that they do it very well. So this is good. So where did you land next? Like, where did you hop onto after Hong Kong?
Yeah, so Hong Kong, it was great, but it was polluted. So we had a kid, and she was suffering from breathing problems.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So Hong Kong, you've got they've got diesel buses, you've got the star ferries, the traditional ferries to cross the harbour, all diesel, and then all the factories in southern parts of China. You get all the pollution kind of wafts down the Pearl River, and on a clear day, you can like look out your window and you see like this brown line. You've got this line of pollution with just a few bits, you know, like the Hong Kong peak poking out the top. And as an adult, you're fine. But with a young child, our child was particularly sensitive to it. Yeah, she went through a period of having to sleep essentially sitting up because when she laid down, she couldn't breathe. Talked to the doctors and they said, well, if you stick around, she'll probably end up with childhood asthma caused by all the pollution. So it was like, you know what, we're out. Love the city to bits, not good with our child. Yeah, her health comes first.
Got it.
We did actually look at Singapore. So Singapore's kind of the suburbs to Hong Kong. So you think about like a dense city. People live there, single people, they get married, and when they have a family, they kind of move out to the suburbs.
Right.
Single people go to Hong Kong, get married. When they have a family, they move to Singapore. So Singapore's kind of like the suburbs for Hong Kong, which is pretty cool. But yeah, so we decided maybe not Singapore. Let's try something a bit different. And I was still working in finance. I'd been through a couple of companies in Hong Kong. I was working for a brokerage there, running a team of developers. But as we kind of been looking at different places around the world, there was finance available in the Caribbean, a lot of tax havens there. So I was like, you know what could have clearer air than an island in the middle of nowhere? So we moved from Hong Kong to Bermuda.
Oh, wow. That's quite a bit of move actually, all the way from.
So packaged up, moved to Bermuda, you know, literally middle of nowhere, you know, 1,000 miles from the nearest land, and no pollution whatsoever, which was kind of it was a bit of a change. I must admit, it was definitely a bit of a change, but it was really, really cool to kind of do that, to go from this city that's just densely populated to an island that's beaches, people.
Yeah, I mean, and the food must be very different. There you are eating Oriental cuisines, and here you are completely Caribbean. And then you grew up on, I guess, potato and mushrooms, right? That's what the British thing is, isn't it?
Fish
On
and
average.
chips, mushy peas, and yeah, I mean, British can do amazing things with meat. There's
Yeah.
the French used to nickname us les roast beefs, which means
Oh,
the
okay.
roast beefs, and that was a nod to our ability to roast lumps of meat. Obviously,
Right.
Asian cuisine, very, very different.
Right.
I love Asian cuisine. Top
Yeah.
tip: if you want to lose weight, move to Hong Kong. I moved
Yeah.
to Hong Kong. I ate everything. Didn't look after my weight. Lost 10 kilos
Lost 10 kilos. Okay.
just because the quality of the food, so much fresh veggies and fish and meats are so good. And Bermuda, the food was terrible. I'll say that it doesn't farm anything. Everything's got to be imported.
Imported. Oh, okay.
Yeah. So if you're lucky, you might get some fresh fish, but the food in Bermuda was terrible. I mean, Bermuda on the whole wasn't a great experience, but it
I was
was.
under the impression that it's Caribbean, so they must have tropical climate, so they would have a lot of like mangoes and pineapples and nothing like that.
It's officially Caribbean because it's part of like a Caribbean collective, but it's a long way north. So where you got the main Caribbean, you kind of go a long way north, and you've got Bermuda. It's very separate. So it was certainly it's warm. Christmas Day was spent on the beach, but it doesn't really have much in the way of fresh stuff growing there. Pretty much everything was imported.
Got it. So okay, that's good. And then after Bermuda, was it US then? Because you're so close to the US.
No. So from Bermuda, so had a bad experience in Bermuda. Worked for somebody who was not a nice person to work for. Got to get out of this place. And I decided, so Bermuda's still working in finance and been doing finance for a number of years. And the culture in finance is not the best. So the culture of finance is very much take. In Hong Kong, I was sitting next to a guy who trades in his Lamborghini to buy a McLaren. It's like, oh, I need to get a good bonus so I can get the next sports car. It was a sexist culture. It was a racist culture. It wasn't a nice culture. Everyone's just all about how much can I make, and I will tread on everyone till I can to get that way. And I was starting to realize that's not how I wanted to live my life. It's fun growing up for a bit. Look at me, I got some money, got my sports car, got my nice house, go traveling around the world, but that's not a good way to live. So I was like, you know what, I need to make a change. I actually ended up quit everything, and we moved to Thailand for a while. I wanted to learn something new. I wanted to change my tech stack, learn something new. Interested in this phone thing, this mobile stuff looked quite cool. And so parked myself in a co-working space in Thailand for 6 months, learning a new tech stack. And as well as learning it, I thought I'm going to blog about this. I'm not just going to take, how can I give something back to the community? How can I get involved with tech communities? So I started learning technology called Xamarin, which is C#.NET for mobile phones. It's kind of now being replaced with .NET MAUI. And so I thought, as I'm learning this, I'm going to contribute to the tech communities. So as I do something, I'm going to blog about it. If I ask a question on the Xamarin forums and get an answer, I'm then going to find a question that I can answer. If I can't find a question I can answer, I'm going to research until I can answer a question. And so I try to get into the attitude of I give more to the community than I take. And so I started trying to get involved in events and doing more down that line. Now, money ran out after a while. You can only so long you can live in Thailand eating amazing food when you're not earning any cash. So went back to the UK for a while, sold myself to a bank because it was easy, just for a bit, doing some code whilst I was still doing a lot of the Xamarin work in my spare time. Got involved in a few Xamarin meetups, giving talks at meetups, got made a Xamarin MVP, which is their kind of recognition program for community organizers. And then it's like, okay, I want a job doing this mobile phone thing. I want to get away from banks and I want to do something with mobile phones. And so ended up, I saw a job advertised in New Zealand. Literally, UK, New Zealand, the furthest point away you can get for a small company there. I actually interviewed for them in Thailand. So the company I was working from the UK, they were fairly flexible about remote work. You could work from home. Didn't care where that was. So I went back to Thailand for a couple of months and worked from home from Thailand, which was a bit of fun. Interviewed for this company in New Zealand and then, moved out to New Zealand. Spent a couple of years there as a mobile developer.
Wow, man, you have an incredible, I don't know, you have been to UK, to Hong Kong, to Singapore, Thailand, Caribbean, New Zealand. Wow, that's I thought I am the one who have traveled quite a bit, but now I
Bit
can't
around.
imagine the number of countries you have been to and lived there actually. So were you traveling with your family or by yourself?
With the
With
family. Yep. Oh,
Oh,
yep.
okay.
Yeah. So
That
my daughter's now lived in 4 continents.
wow.
It's pretty
Yeah,
cool.
I've never been to Oceania area, like neither Australia or New Zealand. I've been to Japan, though I lived in Japan,
Oh,
but
nice.
that's my furthest away from here. But Australia and New Zealand, I don't think so. So we are coming, we are wanting to wrap this up, and probably we can do another one if you still have time.
Yeah.
So we'll wrap this one up. So first of all, this was a great conversation, Jim. Really, very, very excited to hear your passion for, technology and traveling the different countries, understanding the culture, understanding the different people. You talked about so many different countries, and like you found your wife and your daughter, like your love for your family and taking them along all over the places where you went through. So it was a very, very fascinating journey. I love to, have another round with you to really understand your journey from that point onwards to like what you're doing now, and how you're contributing back to the community, the passion that you picked up after quitting your banking kind of career after having experience in Bermuda. I would like to dig a little bit deeper into that area and learn more from you as we go forward. So I'll wrap this conversation here today, and please be here, and I'll start another session to record the next conversation we have.
Awesome. No, thank you very much. It's been fun so far. Looking forward to
Sounds
the next
good.
part.
Yes, just be here. I'll log in again. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.